to work with to manipulate your environment.
Survival of the fittest, and it means that, well, for example,
every time I always do watch your
I always joke about natural selection being when people run across the street and they don't get hit, but I figure, you know, they're more likely to get hit and probably not carry on their genes.
A species, ours or a different one, the strongest, the smartest, the healthiest, the best genes going on, and the lesser falling away and dying out.
Natural selection to me means that you will survive if you have the ability to progress forward despite the elements that are against you. So if you have strong genetics, like you have a strong mind and your mind can overcome like emotional instability or mental illness.
Natural selection is the guys that can't get laid. They can't pass on their genes to the next generation.
Yes.
That's all we learn in human nature, actually, or in my class anyways, and I just think that it's a very good theory. I don't know, I think there's lots of proof to back it up, and just personally I do believe in it because it's very logical.
It is the only logical explanation for existence.
Sweet.
I have a somewhat belief in evolution. I think that there's so many different beliefs in evolution that there could be many of ways of how the earth could have been created, and also from the biblical perspective, how God created it. But I think there is a good chance that evolution is real and that we were created from a big boom. But I mean, I don't know, there's just so many different stories and myths about how the world's been started and how long it's been around, so you never really know.
I do, because I got 3 wisdom teeth. I don't know where that 4th one is, but pretty sure that we had a 4th one at some point.
I do believe in evolution. I think it occurs in all species. I think that it's just how we adapt and evolve to become what we are today.
I would say yes, because humans seem to have more complex relationships with one another than animals have with each other, so their human language has to dictate those emotions and relationships through the language, so yes, I would say it is more complex.
I don't believe so. I believe that other species have, you know, nuances to the way that they connect with each other that we can't even come close to understanding. I mean, birds have all these different calls that, like, I don't understand, but they mean completely different things to other birds. So, no, I don't think that humans necessarily have more complex languages than any other sort of species.
I feel yes, certainly, since human language has developed in response to demands to name things. Functionally, human language names things, and by identifying them, we understand them as a shared cultural concept. Even across language barriers, you can still point and describe it with your hands as a form of shared language.
I would say that human language is more complex than the language of other species, but I do think people underestimate the complexity of animal language. And I think the more that we study it, the more that we see that animals are way more intelligent and have more communication skills than we once believed.
I believe a language is formed by people kind of teaching it through. It has to be acted out and more so heard and practiced more than anything else. You can't really just study it, you have to be living in it, is what I think.
Language is formed out of necessity for people needing to express themselves and have other people understand what it is they need and want.
Automatically. Languages come about by default. Children especially just have language. They just
know how to do it. Because we're built that way.
Language is formed when people want to find a way to better communicate with each other, and they want to make sense of what's going on around them and the world, and they just want to share it with somebody instead of just keeping it inside. So they find better and better ways to communicate and find a way to interact.
Alien intervention and necessity.
I don't consider humans to be naturally anything, so not really. I think if they are violent, it's because of the culture that's influenced them.
I don't consider humans to be naturally violent. I think it's a construction of our patriarchal society that humans are supposed to be naturally violent, and that's only happened since the rise of culture and society. Before that, you never heard of humans being violent. It's just since we moved from hunter-gatherer status, all of a sudden men are supposed to be violent. Yes, I do, because I think even back in the really old days when you had cavemen, they still had, fights between the two of them, between people. People are always out for themselves, and I think you're always going to see some sort of conflict when both people are wanting the same thing, whether they're fighting over food or fighting over shelter or fighting over those, basic needs that people have to have. And so I think that you're always going to see people kind of, find conflict with each other.
Humans to be naturally violent because
I thought you were listening in.
We didn't always have the ability to rationalize things and think things out or have languages to talk about how we're feeling about something, and so we would use our physical force in order to display how we were feeling. And I think that at times that would come out in a violent nature.
I guess I consider humans to be less naturally violent and more naturally competitive. And I think that there are some that have more of a moral flexibility.
Studying bonobos helps us understand how college freshmen hook up when they're drunk.
I think it helps us understand that we're not much different from other animals, and clearly primates are closely related. And I think they, similar aggressive tendencies and cultural needs within their community. And studying them helps us, preserve hopefully their lives and learn a little bit about ourselves as well.
Sweet.
Study of primates can help us understand human nature by witnessing their behavior and how they adapt to their environment, and we can understand how we might adapt to our environment given certain circumstances.
I feel like primates and we are so closely related that maybe we can use primates to understand how some of our instincts, where they come from, and where they're going too. Maybe we're just all connected on an evolutionary chain, and they're interesting to look at either way.
Well, a study in which monkeys that had never seen a snake were shown a snake and they were terrified, suggesting that that kind of reaction was hardwired and would be hardwired in humans.
Because my culture and my understanding of the world, it's regarding whatever I came from.
All the things that you've been taught kind of give you a different view on things. Like if you've been taught a certain political affiliation or something, then that can affect you later on. Or your customs, like if you see somebody from another country, then they have different customs from you, then you can interpret them differently.
I've had the luck of living in multiple different cultures, so I don't really think it does. But I know that people who have lived in just one culture their entire life, it definitely changes their nuances.
I believe that we need to have more understanding of the different cultures that are around us.
Your views of the world depend on how you were raised and where you were born. But as I've grown, I've learned that everyone's different, and I pretty much see everyone the same way.
It's impossible
for them not to. We all see the world through the prism of our past experiences.
I was born in Alabama, coming to Portland. Some of the things that were like, ingrained in me as a kid has become a little odd here. And then people here have felt, influence how certain things that I learned growing up were kind of wrong, but they were kind of forced growing up.
I believe your culture and what you learn from your family members and just how you're raised is how your human nature is created with yourself. That's just how you learn how to be.
Culture, I think, is a product of the environment that you grew up in, which directly affects your views and therefore affects your knowledge and your interaction with human nature.
I think culture is a direct reflection of how humans interact with each other, so that's how it's related.
It's related to human nature in the fact that our culture is kind of depicting of who we are, and it, in my opinion, how do I say this? It kind of shapes how we treat people and how we interact with people.